Buick GSX Stage 1. Where else are you going to see that on YouTube? Only here.
Only on the Audrain Museum Network. Subscribe right there and hit that notification bell.
Now, of course, Oldsmobile and Buick were the mature divisions from General Motors, but Buick certainly was not going to have a color as bold as the Hearst gold that you might find in a 442. No, this is Cortez gold. Now, if you got out a color chip, you'd probably be hard pressed to tell the difference, but perhaps a brighter metal flake in the Hearst gold. But this is certainly a bold statement. But I also love the way the graphics on this car are so incredibly beautifully integrated. The way this side stripe just wraps right around on the trunk lid spoiler is absolutely beautiful and completely Buick. Well, Steve, this is a very special Buick indeed.
Absolutely. I really wanted to get in the passenger seat for this one because I've loved this car ever since I was a kid. And as much as my dream car is a 1970 Charger, this is the one that I read about being the Hemi Killer. So what is better than my dream car? I have to experience it.
Well, you know, it's one of those things too that this period of time when every GM division had to have a car in every segment, which sort of didn't make any sense in terms of the great GM ladder of brands and different products for different customers. But, you know, things like the old 442 and the Buick GSX didn't seem to make sense. Why would the bankers' cars have high performance versions?
Right.
But of course today we're very happy that they did. And the other thing is, as a collector, the 442 and especially the GSX make a better deal because they were less likely to have been totally thrashed when young.
Yeah.
They attracted a more mature buyer than a Chevelle SS might have.
Right.
This is also very near and dear to my heart because one of the first cars that I had was a 1973 Buick Centurion convertible, which shares one thing and yet not that thing with this car, the great 455 V8. Now the 455 in my Centurion put out a mighty 260 horsepower, which was enough to make it move very respectfully. However, this 455 in this tune is slightly different.
Yeah, 350 horsepower, which is, we have to preface that by saying there was probably a bit of lying in that number.
355 advertised horsepower.
Yeah, exactly. Because, you know, the non-GSX models like the Wildcat and Riviera had 370, so something's, you know, afoot, you know. And it also had 510 pound-feet of torque.
Which is insane.
It's insane.
It's insane
number,
today.
And it's
in 1971, it was ridiculous.
Unheard of. Yeah, it was insane, and it got this big body car moving. And that's the great thing about these is, you know, we have this argument all the time. What's a pony car? What's a muscle car? What's a true muscle car? To me, this is the quintessential muscle car, even above a 454 Chevelle. I mean,
well, you know, it's a very funny thing you should mention that, because you mentioned two things which I think make a lot of sense and things that people don't really remember. The fact that you said this is a big car.
Yeah.
Back in the day, this is an intermediate.
Right.
So this wasn't the big car. The big car was the Wildcat.
The Wildcat and the
LeSabre and Centurion.
Yeah.
And so it's very, very interesting that to that definition, which I think is sort of the pure definition of a muscle car, is that big engine and a small body, because the Skylark was really designed for families and for sort of sporty car types, certainly not performance, pure performance. And so to have this kind of specification in this car is quite remarkable.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, they took the engine out of the true big body cars, you know, the stuff, the sedans and the coupes that you would drive around just to cruise down a nice road, a nice city road. But, you know, for today's standards, this is a big car. So it just
this is a huge car by today's standards.
It needed that extra power, and to take that engine with the big grunt and put in this, which is, you know, at the time a mid-sized car, but to us a big car. You just had to wonder what was going through their mind at the time, and why they wanted something, or why they knew that we would want something like this so much.
Well, again, in the period, displacement and horsepower were king.
Yeah.
So every brand had to show that they were a player in the performance game. And I think that the way Buick did it with this car, and especially this very limited production car that we're driving today, a GSX Stage 1, one of 124, this is the kind of car that was very much a halo car. They knew they weren't going to sell a lot of these, but the fact that these existed in the line made all of the base Skylarks a lot sexier.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the other thing which I love about this car is that Buick had two great ad slogans in the 1960s and 70s. One was, when better cars are built, Buick will build them. And the other was, wouldn't you really rather have a Buick?
Yeah, in this case, absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, you can keep your Chevelle, thank you very much. I will take the Buick, happily. Now the other thing is, of course, by today's performance car standards, and let's not get into your Charger for a moment right now, but sort of comparing it to the Mustangs and Camaros of the day, even the Firebird, that's the one thing that this car is slightly missing, because it's got all of this power under my right foot,
right?
But the steering is Buick Light, and so again, I think that was a very purposeful choice. They knew who their audience was. It was the 35 or 40-year-old, not the 18-year-old.
Right. I find that very interesting, but I will argue that, you know, you didn't need to corner in this car. This was a pure quarter-mile vehicle, and it all shows in the numbers. I mean, if you want to look at the Boss Mustang, whether you want to call that a pony or a muscle car, we can argue about that at a different time.
Let's.
But you look at the Boss, and this was still tenths of a second faster in the quarter mile, so it didn't matter. As long as you could keep it straight and put that skinny pedal down, you didn't have a problem.
It is very much the case, although I think that probably the first owners of these cars engaged in very informal street racing, which is say light to light, not pink slip challenges.
Yeah, and well, I mean, that was just a product of the time. But luckily, this one has been very well preserved and probably wasn't beat on all that much.
No, this is a remarkable example that we're driving right now, and you know, it's also a testament. This time period in the early 70s to mid 70s, a lot of people think is in many ways the nadir of American production in terms of quality control and all of that. Yeah, the materials are getting a little harder and less interesting than they were in the 1960s, but I think this car is still really solid for what it is.
Absolutely. I would put this up against, you know, my Chrysler products, my favorites. This interior is much cleaner, and the finish and the button-up is well above what Chrysler was doing at the time.
And again, it's a Buick, so it had to be.
Yeah, absolutely. There's luxury involved in this interior. 100%.
Of course, one of the things I also love is the hood-mounted tack.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that reminds you what you're in. Other than that, you could feel like you're in a regular Riviera, you know, or a regular Skylark, I should say.
Yeah.
Very, very comfortable, very well laid out.
And the way
you have AC.
Yes.
Oh, my God.
And the way the torque comes on, it's very funny because you generally don't think of these big General Motors V8s as being very revvy. This thing is so eager to rev.
Yes, it is.
It is absolutely remarkable.
Yeah, that's where you really feel it. That's a good amount of torque in a car like this, absolutely.
Yeah, and in no time at all, it revs up to 6,000 RPM. I mean, this is an American V8. It's not supposed to do that, you know? Well, this isn't a Ferrari.
No, that's not bad at all. That's definitely not bad.
And the smoothness of it as well. You know, a lot of people say, oh, well, this has got a slush box, who cares? The mating of this engine and this turbo hydromatic transmission is perfect.
Yeah, I didn't even feel a shift there. That was pretty impeccable.
It's you know, people always talk about turbine-like power delivery. This is that.
Yeah,
you know,
it's very smooth.
And I talked about the lightness of the steering. The car handles
It
well.
does.
So,
It really did look like it was cornering pretty well there. And I can't say, you know, my dream car, the 70 Charger, would handle it that way. I've seen some pretty rough videos of it taking corners.
Yeah, we won't even talk about Bullet. But,
yeah, no, we do not. We do not. That really showed where the Mustang outperformed it. But this, you know, if one of those cars saw this coming behind it on any street, you just pull over because you're going to lose.
Exactly. And one of the other things I love about this particular car as well, the Stage 1 in this wonderful gold is just so absolutely fantastic.
Stunning. I love the white because you really get that pinstriping, but the gold, I mean, you know exactly what it is as soon as you see it.
Exactly. This is an amazing car for a knowing clientele, and also, frankly, as a collector car, it's nice to not see yourself coming and going the way you might in some others.
Oh yeah.
So,
oh yeah.
This is a wonderful car, and I know that I would certainly rather have a Buick.
Thank you for the ride, Donald.
Absolutely.